Perched on top of a mount that stands out in the flatlands of Alentejo, the village of Monsaraz stands at the heart of a region populated by man since time immemorial. The medieval walled town is presently bathed by the massive Alqueva Dam reservoir that constituted the largest transformation of its geography in millennia. In the 8th century it was conquered by the Islamic forces, being called Sarij or Sarish. Tradition indicates that it was later seized by the Christian forces in 1167, led by the mythical knight Gerald the Fearless. In 1173 it is retaken by the Almohad Caliphate, being definitively reconquered in 1232 during the reign of King Sancho II, with precious help from the Knights Templar. Monsaraz is then donated to the Templars, that are entrusted with its defense and repopulation. The village's first charter dates from 1276, during the reign of King Afonso III. Tradition associates the process of population of Monsaraz to the knight Martim Anos Zagalo, who was the alcalde of the village and of its castle. After the extinction of the Knights Templar in Portugal, the town was transferred in 1319 and as a commandery to the Order of Christ, remaining under the authority of Castro Marim. In the Ravelin of St. John, on the eastern side of the town's ramparts, we can see the ruins of some medieval structures from the 13th to the 16th century, including an acropolis, a schist pavement, and a house with 2 floors. Such fact confirms the expansion of Monsaraz outside its original walled enclosure. The house had a private chapel and vestiges of plastered walls with ochre mural paintings. Here, we can also see the curious chapel of St. John the Baptist, whose format, with a cubic base topped by a hemispherical dome, led to believe that it may have been an 11th or 12th century Kuba that was later Christianized. Archaeological excavations revealed that this temple was built at a later date, between the end of the 16th century and the beginning of the 17th century. The chapel's interior is covered by a set of mural paintings depicting biblical allegories, created in 1622 by José de Escovar, an artist from the school of Évora. It fell into disuse in the 18th century, and since then it has been severely damaged by treasure hunters, and fell into disrepair due to the neglect it continues to suffer. The village gate facing east is known as the Gate of the Hole or of the Cistern, since it stands close to the medieval cistern built in the 14th or 15th century. The terrace on top of this structure channels the rainwater to the inside of the reservoir that has a rectangular shape and is covered by a barrel vault divided into 9 bays. The cisterns were essential structures in walled towns during the Middle Ages, for they allowed the provision of water to the inhabitants even during sieges. In the heart of the village stands the Nuno Alves Pereira Square, on which we can find some of the most relevant monuments of Monsaraz. Among them, the imposing church of Nossa Senhora da Lagoa stands out. The current temple, in Mannerist style and authored by the architect Pedro Gomes, was built in the 16th century, replacing a smaller Gothic church that dated back to the 13th century. Built using, among other materials, the local schist, This church is divided in 3 naves. Inside, the highlight is the tomb of Gomes Martins Silvestre, carved in Estremoz marble in the 14th century. In front of the church, we can find the Monsaraz pillory, built in the 16th century and rebuilt after the 1755 earthquake. Carved in limestone, it features a column with the Corinthian capital, topped by a sphere with a crocket. On the southern side of the square stands the building of the Monsaraz City Council, built in the 1600s and featuring a triple archway on the ground floor. It lost its functions when the municipality seat was transferred to Reguengos de Monsaraz in 1838. On the northern side we can find the Palace of Public Hearings, former city council and medieval court of Monsaraz, whose construction dates back to the second quarter of the 14th century. The building suffered various changes throughout the centuries, but it still has architectural elements from the medieval age, such as the pointed arch door, the double windows, and the ribbed vaults. In 1958, during repair works, an exceptional fresco mural painting from the 15th century was discovered here. It would become known as the Good and Bad Judge fresco. On the left side, the just and virtuous characters are portrayed wearing white garments. On the right side, wearing yellow clothing, the color of falsehood, appears the bad judge. This set only has parallel in the frescoes of Ambrogio Lorenzetti in the communal palace of Siena, dedicated to the allegories of the good and bad governments of Siena, painted between 1338 and 1340. In the upper left section of the fresco appears a musician angel blowing the trumpet, announcing divine justice. In the middle, the Christ Pantocrator, all-powerful, wears a red tunic and has his feet resting over the globe, Orbis Terrarum. On the bottom, to the right of Christ, the prophet Ezekiel represents the Omega, the end. Below, to the left of Christ, the prophet Jeremiah represents the Alpha, the beginning. On the lower section of the fresco, from the left to the right, appears the magistrate that assists the good judge during the trial. A bit below is the defendant acquitted by the good judge. The good judge, crowned by justice and mercy, wears a white robe and holds the red rod of the municipal magistracy. After comes the figure of a villain that corrupts the bad judge by giving him 2 partridges. The bad judge is depicted with 2 faces and a demon is whispering on his ear. His red rod, symbol of the magistracy, is broken. To the right of the bad judge stands the figure of a rich man that corrupts him with gold coins. Finally, we have the magistrate that assists the bad judge during the trial. This building was altered over time, having been adapted in the late 15th century and after a diploma issued by King John II for use as a jail, with the construction of a 2nd floor. On the end of the Santiago Street stands a building that local tradition claims to have been the Inquisition House. Such court never existed in Monsaraz, though this may have been a crossing point of people arrested for judgment in the Holy Office of Évora. It was built in the 17th century, being divided into 2 floors. On the upper one it features a tile panel from the 1700s, possibly made by the Oliveira Bernardes factory, and a sgraffito frieze. Nowadays, this building houses the interactive center of Jewish history, where the memory of the Jewish presence in Monsaraz, documented since the town's first charter in 1276, is made known. Through information panels and some archaeological objects, the three great religions that are a part of this village's history are addressed: Islamism, Judaism, and Christianism. In the reign of King Denis of Portugal, the castle's keep was built and the town's walled enclosure was enlarged. These structures, though altered, have survived to this day. During the succession crisis of 1383-1385, the castle's alcalde, Gonçalo Rodrigues de Sousa, took the side of Beatrice of Portugal. Monsaraz then fell into Castilian hands. The village would be conquered in 1385 by the Portuguese forces, led by the constable Nuno Alves Pereira, who would then receive it as a donation by the King John I. In 1422, the constable donated the town to his grandson Fernando I, future 2nd Duke of Bragança. The King Manuel I bestowed a new charter upon the village in 1512. The Monsaraz castle stands at an altitude of around 1,000 feet. Its walls have an irregular and elongated oval shape in a northeast-southwest direction. The medieval core of the fortification has a 5-sided floor plan, standing on the southwestern edge of the enclosure. The keep is in Gothic style and built in granite stonework. Inside, it preserves ogival vaults in its 2 floors. The ground floor was used as a prison and as a weapons storage. The upper floor was the village's noble room. Around 1830, the old place of arms, built in schist and lime, was in profound disrepair due to the abandonment of the old military building. The people of Monsaraz decided to reuse the available materials to build a bullfight arena that continues to be used until today during the celebrations of Senhor Jesus dos Passos. In total, the medieval walled enclosure of the village had 4 granite stonework gates: the village gate facing north, the cistern gate to the east, the Évora gate to the west, and the Alcoba gate facing south. In the context of the Restoration War, 1640 to 1668, the strategic border position of Monsaraz led to the modernization of its defensive structures. Thus, a bastion fort in Vauban style was constructed around the village, following a project by the French military engineers Nicolas de Langres and Jean Gillot. In the 19th century, the village of Monsaraz lost its economic and strategic importance. In 1838, the county seat was transferred to Reguengos de Monsaraz. It was long since the populations preferred to live in the plains for its ease of access and because of the growth of the wine and craft industries. Abandoned for decades, Monsaraz saw its castle being classified as a national monument in 1951. At that time, some reconstruction work was made by the government. From the 1960s onwards, several buildings were bought by private investors, being rebuilt and adapted following an idealized perspective of the whitewashed houses town in Alentejo. The arrival of the large water surface of the Alqueva Dam in the 21st century, the largest artificial lake in Western Europe, was solely the latest chapter in the long and rich history of the village of Monsaraz. In the outskirts of the walled area of Monsaraz, there are several chapels that sadly have been condemned to oblivion. Among those, perhaps the most relevant is the Chapel of St. Catherine. Its construction harks back to the 13th century, being associated with the presence of the Knights Templar in this region. The highlight is its hexagonal apse, to which a set of battlements was added later, reinforcing its watchtower appearance. A Romanesque round arch leads into the apse that is covered by a deep ogival dome, under which a serrated frieze appears. Its classification as a national monument in 1971 didn't prevent its abandonment. The most famous megalithic monument in Monsaraz is the Xerez or Xerez cromlech, whose original placing was about 3 miles south of Reguengos de Monsaraz, in front of the Xerez Mount. It was discovered for the first time in 1969, at a time when almost all its stones were toppled, being excavated by José Pires Gonçalves. In 1972, this physician and archaeologist re-erected the 55 monoliths that he found, forming a cromlech of approximately square shape around a larger central menhir. This reconstruction continues to be quite controversial, since it followed non-consensual interpretative criteria, and the square shape is very rare in this type of prehistorical enclosures. This cromlech was going to be submerged after the rise of the Alqueva Dam waters. Archaeological excavations were then done, and the monument was transferred in 2004. The prehistoric monument was reconstituted next to the Orada convent, in the plain below the village of Monsaraz, where it can be visited today. This enclosure dates to the period between the 4th and 3rd millennium BC, being composed by about 50 granite menhirs of sizes varying between 1 and 7 feet. The central menhir has a height of about 12 feet, featuring a cylindrical shape and being decorated with several cup marks, a motif frequently found in megalithic art. Those same cup marks appear on the flat top of one of the smaller stones. Its purpose and meaning is still a subject of discussion among the scientific community. Circular engravings and a crozier were also identified among the menhirs in this group, whose morphologies vary between the cylindrical, the egg-shaped, the conical and polyhedric, including blocks that have been used as manual grinding stones. Controversies aside, the Xerez cromlech constitutes a fascinating and important part of the megalithic Alentejo, being classified as a public interest property since 1986. About 2.5 miles away from Monsaraz, on the side of the road between the towns of Telheiro and Outeiro, stands the Bulhoa menhir, also known as Bulhoa or Abelhoa menhir. When it was found in 1970, it was toppled and broken, with the lower section, that meanwhile has been lost, having been used as a millstone in an olive oil press. The lower part was then reconstructed from a granite block, allowing this imposing megalithic monument to recover its original height of 13.12 feet. Chronologically, it stands in the period between the late Neolithic and the Chalcolithic, between the 4th and 3rd millennium BC, being part of the so-called megalithic universe of Évora. On a regional level, it's part of a nucleus that also includes the Outeiro Menhir, with its towering 18.4 feet in height, and the Monte da Ribeira Menhir, profusely engraved. Beyond the usual phallic form of other megalithic monuments of this kind, the Bulhoa Menhir stands out for its tapered profile of elliptical section. Its eastern and western sides were carved to create wider and flatter surfaces, used as panels to be engraved, turning it into a cross between a stele and a menhir. Its main decorated side is topped by a depiction of a radiant sun. Right below there are wavy and zigzagging lines. The lower right section is decorated with serpentiform motifs that surround the shape of a crozier, a symbol associated with shepherding and therefore with the concepts of command and power. The Bulhoa Menhir has one of the richest ornamentations among European megalithic art, being classified as a national monument since 1971. Some 5 miles away from Monsaraz, already in the neighbouring civil parish of Curval, stands the Rocha dos Namorados, Lava's Rock Menhir, a natural granite outcrop that has been used in rituals for millennia. Its peculiar morphology, with the lower section being narrower than the top, recalls the shape of a mushroom, which was probably behind its association to magical and religious rituals. Several cup marks are carved on its sides. These shapes appear in several megalithic monuments, confirming the antiquity of its sacralization. The continuity of beliefs surrounding this rock is attested by the hexafoil rosettes depicted on one of its sides. This protection symbol first appeared in the Bronze Age and was later absorbed by Christian art. This rock was later Christianized with the engraving of a Latin cross and with its inclusion as part of a processional route between the chapel of Our Lady of the Rosary and the town of Aldeia do Mato. Nowadays, we can still find the Rocha dos Namorados covered with hundreds of small stones, tokens of an archaic pagan tradition that continues to this day. On Easter Monday, therefore in the spring, the single girls of the region travel to this menhir to throw rocks to its top. Tradition says that each stone that fails to remain on top of the rock is equal to 1 more year of waiting for marriage, a fascinating example of the survival of ancient fertility cults. Thank you for discovering Portugal with us. If you liked the video, please click on the like button and subscribe to the channel to follow our new releases.